Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It's a distinct honor and privilege to be with you here today. I'd like to begin by asking you this question. How many of you in this audience would call yourself persistent? Raise your hand. I don't see everyone's hand going up. That kind of disappoints me here. Do you know what it takes to be successful? What does it look like? I would not be here today if that was not a part of my life. You see, everything I've done in my life is because I have the drive, I have the determination to make it happen. Yeah. And to tell you just a few of my accomplishments, I need to let you know things don't always go the way that you want them to go. So the first time I applied for this international organization that traveled the world promoting cultural understanding called Up With People, I didn't get accepted. But I didn't let it set me back, because I did travel the world and I did promote cultural understanding. One of my next greatest achievements was TEDx. How many in this audience are familiar with TED Talks? Okay, the person standing right here in front of you right now has coached 6 people on the TEDx stage, and even the young child who built the box of arcade boxes was my client. I helped him deliver that speech. And this past January, when I stood on that TEDx stage and I gave a speech that's called Bringing Language to Life, it was the best moment of my life. But you see, standing here in front of all of you is even better. It's even better. It's my distinct honor and privilege to be here. But I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the help of Doug Rinder over here. I went to his club and said, I don't have very many speeches coming up in the future, and I was wondering if you might have a speech for me. He said, well, would you like to be the keynote address speaker? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am today. Thanks to this gentleman over here. Let's give him a round of applause. Next up, Matthew is somewhere over here. And Matthew is my friend that I've been communicating with all the way up until yesterday, because I wanted to make sure this was the right speech for all of you. So let's give him a round of applause. Now, you see, I inspire people everywhere that I go. And so if you're a student in my class at one of the colleges I teach at, please go ahead and raise your hand. The guy back there taking the pictures, there's some students over there. Because they realize when I'm up there talking, there's things that I can do to change people's lives, just like I'm going to change yours in this next few minutes. You don't give a speech unless there's an audience. And I'm so thrilled that each and every one of you is standing here today, sitting in those lovely chairs. So let's get started. My name is Rosalyn Kahn, and my business is called Coaching and Professional Speaking. How to master the message with passion and purpose. I am your inner guide to reaching your highest potential. I help coach people both on their presentation and their speaking skills. And today, it's my distinct honor to share with you a speech that's entitled Planting the Seeds of Inspiration. How to take your next step till tomorrow. Today we're going to talk about seizing the opportunity. In your experience as high school students, you're exposed to many wonderful things, just as I was in my youth. And I'm going to share with you how those volunteer experiences of yesterday put me where I am here today. Next, I'm going to share some random acts of kindness that is changing the world from this moment on. And finally, I'm going to help you move to your next tomorrow. So let's go ahead and get started. When I was the same age as all of you, I didn't just sit at home. I had many things that kept my days busy. And I think I was born as a salesperson, and I was born to volunteer. As a young person, I worked with campfire girls, and I was probably the #1 person who sold the most campfire candy. When I got into religious school, I was the one who sold the most magazines to help my religious institution. When I was on the swim team and they needed to raise money, that was me. When I had to raise $5,500 to travel around the world, I raised half of that money on my own, going out and speaking to key clubs, doing swim-a-thons so I could raise the money. These experiences were so important in the field of sales. As I stand here in front of you, my first career was in sales. I I sold commercial time for a Spanish language radio station that still exists. It's called KHJ Radio Alegría 930. I also worked for an affiliate of Univision, where I took my sales skills out to helping people get the goods and services that they need. So the sales experience from my youth helped put me in a career that I had. The next really important experience I had, I traveled and spent a whole year traveling all around the world promoting cultural understanding. I went from the barrios of Mexico when families showed me it wasn't the money that you have, but the experiences that they could give to me that provided me this warmth of every Latino I've ever met in my life. I went to the Swiss Alps of Switzerland, where one of my cast members lived. I saw the fjords of Norway. I saw the beauty of Sweden. And I'll never forget the family in Galveston, Texas, who showed me the room where their son had committed suicide. And they told me this message: Rosalyn, you have a sensitivity in yourself. I hope that whatever happens in your life, you don't lose that. That experience marked me as the person I am today. And through the Up With People experience, we not only traveled the world, but we went out and we learned about apartheid. We had two people who came from South Africa. One was an African American, one was a dark-skinned person, and one was a light-skinned person. And they told us what it was like to grow up with apartheid in their native country. We also talked about the Holocaust in preparation for our trip to Germany. And in that experience, we had people who grew up knowing what their forefathers had done. And at the same point, another person shared the experience of a Jewish person. What was that experience all about? Going ahead and living through the Holocaust and what it does for us here today. But there's an important thing that experience about what people taught me. It was about service. It was about giving to other people, which takes me to my work that I do right now. I'm a college teacher, and one of the things I've done with my students is I've taught them about this thing that's called random acts of kindness. Who in the audience here can share with me an example of a random act of kindness? Anybody? Sure, thank you.
Let's say if somebody drops something and they are holding too many things, we will pick it up and come over.
Right, exactly. She said if you drop something, there's a person who goes out of their way to go ahead and pick it up and hand it back to you. You see, when I started this last February, there was a Sunny Point, Connecticut event. If we look at the news today, there isn't a person in this class who's not more horrified about those young children on the other side of the world that was killed because their government leader thought that he knew better than them. But I like to see in this world there are bright and there are beautiful things. And so I taught my students about this random act of kindness. And I taught them about it because I wanted them to see there was hope in our world. There's good things that we can do. And as they went out and they did these random acts of kindness, they would come back and share their stories. Some of my students learned English as a second language. They're embarrassed to go ahead and make a mistake. Public speaking is really scary to get out there and do. But when my students got out and told these stories, there were 4 remarkable things that went ahead and happened. The first one, when they stood up to tell the stories, the words simply rolled off their tongue. Young people as yourself who are so into their text phones put their phones down and they began to listen to words that were being said. If you took a thermometer and you measured the temperament in that classroom, there was serenity and calmness that was throughout the whole audience. But more importantly, I stand here before you and tell you these words. My students changed the world and they continue to this day right now. So let's look at these random acts of kindness. There's one student, a student who I'll call Maria. Maria was a 16-year-old, just like this young lady right here. She came from an inner city high school, and she had a gnarly fight with her sister. There was kicking and scratching and saying of vulgar words. They only have a 2-bedroom apartment. The only place you can get away is the 4 walls of the bathroom, and they shared the same room. They didn't talk for 3 months until I came and introduced this concept of random acts of kindness. And suddenly, my student decided she was going to take the step and she was going to say she was sorry. Not only did she say she was sorry, but it was Valentine's Day. So she bought this most beautiful German chocolate muffin with cream cheese frosting on the top. And she wrote this note and said, "I'm your sister and I want to say sorry because sisters are forever." And she bought this beautiful balloon that said, "I love you." How many of you in this audience would be able to do something like that and say you're sorry to someone who hurt you? Go ahead and raise your hand. Go ahead and raise your hand, okay? Now listen to these words. If that story impacted you when you leave here today, I want you to go to my blog. It's called Stories from My Teachings. It's all together, Stories from My Teaching. And I want you to tell me your story of that person whose life that you went ahead and impacted. And I want to know how it made you feel. Because the world can be a better place by what each and every one of you in this audience do. And that's just one story. The next story is a lady named Maria. Maria is another 17-year-old student, and she was at the bus stop. And as she was at the bus stop, she listened to these horns that were honking and honking, and across the street, she sees this lady with this colorful cane who's struggling to get across the street. She's 90 years old. She can't quite make it across. And so my student comes and helps her to cross to the other side of the road. And as the two of them cross the other side of the road, she realizes this lady named Lupita is going to the same place she is. The two of them get on the bus, and the elder lady, Lupita, is going to Placita Olvera to visit her friend at the church. As Lupita and this young lady begin to chat, she's barraged with these questions. Where are you from? What do you want to be when you grow up? How many sisters do you have? How many brothers do you have? And then Lupita shares her own story. I remember when I was your age, I got married really young. I traveled around the world. I had the most incredible life that ever been. And as my students sat there and listened to those stories, she felt this thing in her heart. Her grandmother was thousands of miles away. And she kind of missed her grandmother at that time. But as she sat and she talked to this lady, it warmed her heart, and she felt really good. And as they got to the bus stop and the lady was ready to get off, she said to her these important words: "Please promise me you will graduate from high school. Don't make the mistake and get pregnant. Promise me." And as they got off the bus, the two ladies mouthed these words to one another: "Muchísimas gracias." How many of you, when you listened to that story, thought about your grandparents? Go ahead and raise your hand. Okay? The second thing I want you to do when you leave here today is I want you to pick up the phone and I want you to call your grandma or your grandpa. And I want you to tell them how special they are and how much they mean to you. Because sometimes we get so busy in our own lives, we really don't have to take out the time to go ahead and do those things that really make us happy. How many would agree with that? Definitely. So the good thing about random acts of kindness is they help ourselves feel better. You see, we're hard triggered to go ahead and do nice things for other people. And when we do nice things for other people, it makes us feel happy. And when we feel happy, we share that happiness with other people. The endorphins, the oxytocins go off, and we feel absolutely incredible. I could stand here and tell you stories upon stories upon stories. Because every time I listen to a different story of my random act of kindness, it makes me feel that much better. They're truly incredible. And so I want you to think about what we talked about today. We talked about how the volunteer experience of my youth shaped the career endeavors that I've took and where I've been today. I told you about the random acts of kindness and how they can help brighten your world, bring a smile to your face. And now let's go ahead and talk about the next step. See, all of you are in a really special place. You're at a really special place because you're at a training program here. And you're going to learn how you can take those skills, how you can take them to the next level, and how you can be the best person that you can be. But I want you to remember these words. Every experience that you do in your worth could be a possible career opportunity down the road. You never want to break a relationship because you never know when it might open up a new door for you. So as you embark on this training today, I want you to go with your eyes wide open. Every one of you in this group does incredible things. I know the work that you do with the pediatric trauma. I know the work that you do with kids in high school. I know the work that you do with the Eliminate program, with tetanus for mothers and neonatal. Those programs are truly inspiring, truly amazing. So as we leave here today, I want you to think about the stories I've told you. And on those days that life is kind of rough, how many of you guys have rough days? Okay. I want you to remember, I've given you an ounce of prevention. I've given you an ounce of prevention. When you go out and you do something nice for someone, you suddenly feel better. And when you have a bad day, I want you to go to my blog. My blog is called Stories from My Teaching at blogspot.com, all together. When you go on there, satisfaction guaranteed. You'll read those stories and you will feel better. Now, my last and final point. How many of you guys think it's kind of scary standing up here and giving a speech? How many of you guys think it's kind of scary? Okay, it's really not. It's not. I'm going to tell you a secret. Every one of you in this audience has a message. And the message that you say could change the hearts and the minds of the people who are sitting here. So if you focus on what that message is, you can take that speech and you can become a success just like me. If you need some extra help, I'm going to give you my webpage. It's Rosalyn Kahn, that's spelled Kahn.com, and I will help you take that speech and make it a success. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Rosalyn Kahn. My business is called Coaching and Professional Speaking, how to master that message with passion and purpose. Are you ready to take the next step? Let me hear it. Does anyone in the audience have any comments or questions that they'd like to ask? Anybody have any questions? Questions? Somebody must have a question. Yeah. Excuse me? Okay, well, there's a trick that I learned, and there's a trick that I learned in my 25 years of public speaking. And his question said, when you're looking at an audience and someone has one of those mean-looking faces and they're not smiling at you, what do you do? And I learned that as I give my speech, I look at the faces that are smiling at me, and I feed off those faces that are smiling at me. And if that person wants to have that face that they're, that's where they're at, and that's their problem. You see, I did an interview on blog radio, and I said, what was my greatest random act of kindness? I go around and I smile at people. And if I can simply get people to smile, I'm making the world a better place each and every day. Somebody have another question? Someone else have another question? Any comments? Dan, I'm sure you have a comment. Mr. Churchill, do you have a comment? He's always got something to say.
I've known you for a long time, and I want to tell you you've got a powerful message. I'm so excited to be your friend.
Dick and I go way back when I was in Toastmasters almost over 25 years ago. And we were in a same group together. And he's seen me in the past, and he sees me where I am today. And he just said, I think you have a truly powerful, powerful message. Anybody else have any other comments? Yes?
I thought it was also inspirational.
What was it that inspired you?
Like the stories that you told, and I thought that also impacted me too. Like I can imagine myself as a girl. You were talking about Maria, and listening to the stories the lady was telling her, and I just felt that feeling too.
Cool. She said that she really thought my stories were quite inspirational as she listened to the story of Maria, she had the chance to go ahead and feel in herself what it was like and how it felt to her to have that experience happen. And so if there's something that you thought that was really inspirational, before you run off to your next meeting, if you could do me a favor, I have my buddy here and he's taken some pictures on my camera. If you'd like to come up and just say how my speech impacted you, it would really warm my heart. Thank you all very much, and I hope you have a phenomenal day of your training.